I tried on I believe it's the 40, and I preferred the dial size of 40, especially in a pilot's watch, just because it's kind of more true to form. However, it did have a substantially longer lug to lug, which had the watch kind of jutting out these lugs. So I ended up going with the 37. Hey y'all, back with another video. How did we end up here where I'm repurchasing this Longines Spirit in a different case size? Well, as you heard in the last video, I kind of was foreshadowing what I would end up doing. But you know what? That's watch collecting. Sometimes I kind of feel like I'm just really renting watches. And luckily, I'm doing it at maybe somewhat of a more obtainable price range. But, I've been searching for a watch that I can have on predominantly on a brown leather strap. I really do enjoy leather, finely crafted leather. I wanted a watch that matched where when I wore my boots, I have like two pair of, some Thursday Captains and then some Tacovas, some cowboy boots. And then when I wear some dress shoes as well, or if I have some like leather belt, I kind of felt like it would be nice to have some, I'm into watches, so it would be nice to have one leather watch. Man, I've been on that search for years now. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of watches that at least come with a leather strap, like at least a brown leather strap. You can always put leather straps aftermarket onto your watch, but I don't know. I felt like maybe the Pilot or Field Watch probably would be more commonly found in that configuration. And I'm picky, so I didn't want something too toolish, meaning like completely bead blasted or completely brushed. I wanted a little bit of, maybe Seiko has spoiled me in putting these amazing like chamfered polished edges. So because of that, it was tricky. All those Field and Pilot watches typically don't have that unless you're talking about like an IWC Mark 20, which that's starting to creep up in price range, as we all know. So that's how I landed on the Longines Spirit line. As you saw in my previous video, which actually happens to be my most popular video, is I previously purchased the 37mm dial variation when that one came out. Now, the tricky thing is in town where I live, I only have one Longines dealer, authorized dealer, and unfortunately, I only could get my hands on the 40mm variant that actually you're seeing right in front of you. And probably the most common complaint or known thing about this watch is that lug to lug, 49.6mm. And I have a 6.5 wrist, so I feel like that's pushing it. So I ended up buying the 37mm variant kind of blindly, in the sense that I didn't have the opportunity to try that on in person, and it fits me perfectly. It would be a perfect Gata watch. Go anywhere, do anything, dressy, sporty, tooly, elegant, perfect. But there's always a catch. So, I've tried to be a minimalist. So I tried to not overlap the watches in my collection. So I ended up, feeling like that was a little bit overlapping with another watch I have in my collection, which is the Seiko Sarb, the iconic Seiko Sarb, which I'll have to show y'all at some point. So I kind of felt like, when I put this on a brown leather strap, it kind of looks a little bit small. Objectively, it's fine, but like subjectively, I felt like this style of watch, a Pilot watch, is kind of known for being a little bit big and sporty because it serves a purpose originally. So it felt a little bit small. that in combination with the lovely quote-unquote double-sided AR, and then being let down finding out that it's actually double-sided, meaning the surface will scratch, and the crystal isn't scratched but the AR is scratched, and it's essentially like a scratch that you can't get out. So those two things kind of made me a little bit sour on the watch, and then I ended up flipping it. It also came on the bracelet, so I ended up, having to purchase the brown leather strap, so that was like an additional cost. So with all that said, here I am with the 40 millimeters, and maybe these are my famous last words, but despite those two things about the long lug to lug and the double-sided AR, I think initially speaking, just kind of like my initial thoughts or impressions, the 40 just really looks more suited for the watch, meaning like this style of watch, this pilot watch, this sports watch. I think definitely 40 looks better. I think there's no doubt about that. If you have the wrist to wear it, then I think the 40 is the right way to go. Of course, there are always going to be downsides, and you're staring at them. You can see that lug to lug at 49.6 is so long that there's like dead space in between the case of the watch, the curvature of the case of the watch, and the straight portion of the strap. Okay guys, so enough blabbering. I've already reviewed this watch, so I'm just kind of gonna try to cover some few basic aspects about the watch. Obviously measurements are different on this variation, so we'll measure it. We'll put it on the time grapher more so for my curiosity to see what I'm dealing with here, and then close with some wrist shots. And I apologize if the lighting is suboptimal. I realize I'm a little bit rusty at these videos, and I've made a move since my last videos, so I've left the typical light that I use in my apartment. So note to self, that will be better next time. Okay guys, so let's get into these famous measurements here. So going most importantly first will be the lug to lug. 49.5 is what I'm getting, guys. 49.5. Okay, lug width also awkwardly at 21. Okay, case width at 40, I think from not 2 to 8 at approximately 41. Interesting. So let's try 10. Let's try like this. Okay, so if we do it right underneath the crown, kind of almost awkwardly at like 9 to 320, it is 40. So we'll call it 40. And then the case thickness will be, and what I found in my dealings with Japanese and Swiss watches, the one thing that the Swiss seem to really do well at outside of Japanese quartz is the thinness of these automatic movements. So in counting the crystal, it is 12.3. Okay guys, but if you don't count that crystal, got to be careful with this stupid scratchable AR. If you don't count that, probably it's approximately like let's just call it 10, let's just say a little bit under 11. Okay, let's get this bad boy on wrist, and then I think we'll probably just close out with the time grapher and some closing thoughts, because yeah, there is some news that I heard recently that y'all might find interesting. So this is the watch on my approximately 6.5 inch wrist. Okay, so we can see we're getting kind of close to hanging off. but I think it's doable. We'll see with time how I feel about that. Okay, so let's try to move this, maybe see if I can get a little bit better shot for y'all. .5-inch wrist, y'all. Okay. Y'all tell me what you think. Definitely watch collecting, goes in phases. I would have thought this was outrageous a year or two ago, but as we've been fed smaller watches to our demanding, then you start to think about the other side too. Okay guys, let's end up with some close-up shots, which are my favorite, and with some closing thoughts. So maybe my famous last words is, I've heard some rumblings, and I will link this below on, there's a post on Reddit of a gentleman who went into an AD, and I wish I did this at my AD, but he looked at the Longines 2025 catalog, I believe, and there was a listing for a 39 millimeter Spirit, three-hander, with, I believe, a 46 millimeter lug to lug, which, that sounds gorgeous. And they actually removed these 5 stars you see on the bottom, the chronometer, which a lot of people seem to hate, and for me, I don't really mind it, to be perfectly honest. I guess I really don't know how it would look without it. I think there is a Hodinkee collaboration of the Spirit GMT that doesn't have that, but that one also got hate for looking like a Tudor. But that one, I think the other thing would be is they went more almost like the titanium model, where more gilded accents. And I kind of do like the classical like black with white here. So, that may be just me trying to cope with the fact that they're probably going to release a better version here shortly. And I'm going to be in a classical watch flipper conundrum of wanting to get that one. But interestingly, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard a single sound about that other than that Reddit post. And I've even contacted Longines, and of course they didn't give me any answer. They just said subscribe to our newsletter. I haven't heard anything on YouTube. I've Googled it. I haven't heard nothing. So who knows? I'm sure they do. They easily could come out with it, because we still have another 5 months in the year, and they could come out with it during the holiday time period and make some sort of reveal 1 month beforehand. So, and then I'll be here making a third rebuy video. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This video. So if you like independent watch videos and reviews, please comment, like, and subscribe. All right, thank you. Have a good day, y'all. So as always, guys, this channel is unsponsored, unfiltered opinions from me, just from a regular guy who enjoys watches. But I'm gonna give a shout out to Jake over at Trifecta Watches, because he's who I'm buying these watches from, and he can offer them to me at a great discount that I actually got from Random Rob. So also shout out to Random Rob. But authorized dealer, and really I don't see anybody else who's beating his prices with that discount that he's offering through Random Rob. So I mean, you could get those. I've had really great experiences with exquisite timepieces as well, but you end up, you got to negotiate for those. So just shout out to Trifecta Watches for making great business